Hi, I'm Katie Jensen from UFG Insurance, this year's keynote sponsor. After a year like 2020, there's no better time for us to come together for the fourth annual Iowa Ideas Conference. UFG is proud to sponsor this important learning experience that every Iowan is welcome to be part of. This is an amazing opportunity to address the timeliest issues impacting our state and hear from a variety of perspectives. The voices of our keynote speakers not only serve to unite, but they encourage us to elevate our own ideas and resources in the spirit of making a difference. From the beginning of the conference to the end, we hope you embrace every unique element of this year's event. Fill your cup with renewed inspiration to pursue an even better tomorrow. On behalf of UFG, enjoy the keynote session.
Welcome to the fourth annual and first virtual Iowa Ideas Conference presented by ITC Midwest. My name is Zach Kaczarski, the executive editor of the Gazette. The Gazette is Eastern Iowa's independently owned daily newspaper and digital news source. We are the creators of a variety of products and services, including what brought you here today, Iowa Ideas. On behalf of the team and our parent company Foliance, welcome. Now it's time to meet our opening keynote, Carson King. Carson King has described himself as an accidental fundraiser turned philanthropist. What started as a joke at ESPN's College Game Day for the Iowa versus Iowa State game in 2019 led to $600 within a half an hour to his Venmo account. Once he decided to donate the funds to the University of Iowa Stead Family Children's Hospital, Carson sparked a national movement, leading to over $3 million raised in just 2.5 weeks. Since then, Carson has created his own nonprofit charity, the Carson King Foundation. He's received the Outstanding Young Iowan of 2020 award and has hit the speaker circuit, visiting a variety of communities, some digitally, including Iowa Ideas. One simple idea, huge impact. Please help welcome Carson King.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I do a Q&A session at the end of every speaking engagement I have. So if you have any questions that pop up, just shoot them down in the chat or write them down. We'll get them to Zach, and he can read them to me when we're done. So I'm Carson King. I'm an accidental fundraiser. My story started back on September 13th of 2019. My friends and I found out ESPN's College Game Day was going to be in Ames. And as an Iowa State fan, we never thought we'd see game day in Ames for any reason other than basketball. So we were really excited. We all wanted to go. The night before, all my friends bailed on making signs. And I was like, you know what, it might be kind of funny. It might be a little bit worth it to make a sign. So I thought, what might be kind of interesting, might get a laugh from a couple people, is if I asked for my Busch Light supply to be replenished and put my Venmo on there. The absolute best case scenario that could come from this is someone behind me sees it and sends me $20 and we're set for the night. And then, the worst case scenario is I irritate some people because I have a sign. So we went to College Game Day. At 3 a.m. we got there by the main stage. It was just packed. There were thousands and thousands of people there. We couldn't get anywhere near the main stage, so we looked into the corner and we saw this little circle secondary stage. We ran over there and stood by it because there's a place to lean on. We thought, oh, maybe we'll get to see David or Maria do an interview in person here. That'd be really fun. So we stood there, and then pretty soon, within like an hour, hour and a half, the entire crowd was just packed in the entire place. Like, it was shoulder to shoulder. We were still right up by that stage. Then the game day started, and they had projectors and everything. You could see like the show that was going on. They had everything up there, over loudspeakers. It was a really cool experience, and it was really neat seeing people from all over the state come together because this was a big deal. I mean, the Iowa State game is really important to us. For 364 days a week or days a year, you're best friends, and then that one day a year you just can't stand your best friends because they're a Hawk fan or they're a Cyclone fan. So game day started, and then pretty soon here comes an entire video crew coming towards us with their security team. And we're like, oh, well, that's interesting. I wonder who's coming. And then we look up, and it's the entire game day crew. They were all coming to that little stage that we were standing by. They all got up there, and Kirk Herbstreit was right in front of us. He reached around, he gave us all high fives and everything. He was in this bright red blazer, Iowa State colors. I really liked it. Gave us all high fives, and they started. So I held up my stupid little sign in my terrible third grade handwriting, and it got on TV for a few seconds. They left and everything. My friend Tyler looks at me and goes, "Hey, who keeps blowing up your phone? You're texts are really going nuts. And I looked down and it wasn't text messages, it was my Venmo account. And within about 15 minutes to a half hour, I had over $400 in my Venmo account from people all across the country that saw that on game day. So we we decided that, you know, this was going to be a really good night out on Welch with us. So everyone around the stage knew what was going on. They were all really excited about it. Um, then a couple minutes later, we hit $600, and at that point, I was like, you know, there's a little bit better than my friend and I's night out on the town. So I decided at that point, $600, that's enough to, you know, rent a hotel room for a family or get some gas cards to people who need it, just things like that. You know, I wanted to donate to charity, but we weren't exactly sure how that was going to look. So after game day got over, I went back to my tailgate and I called my parents, my brother, my sister. We kind of talked about what was going on, you know, what I wanted to do, and we discussed sending the donations to the University of Iowa Stead Family Children's Hospital. Because being an Iowa State fan, I thought that would be a really sweet tie, as, you know, just the community aspect of what college football and game day brings to everything. So we decided we were going to send it to the Stead Family Children's Hospital. At that point, we were at about $1,600, which was just unreal. I couldn't believe we had that much. And we shared it on social media, shared it on, you know, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that fun stuff. We kind of decided that we wanted to pick that because, you know, the Stead Family Children's Hospital helps not only just, you know, the University of Iowa, but it helps the people all over the state and the Midwest and even the country. There's a stat that came out not too long ago that their NICU program, they're able to save 70% of babies born at 22 to 28 weeks gestation, which is the size of a pop can. 70% of those kids they're able to save. The rest of the country, that percentage is at 9%. So that's a huge difference. They're making incredible steps to save lives. And then their cancer treatment centers, just the level of, you know, education and experience their staff has, it's all completely unreal. It's a really sweet thing to watch. So that following Sunday, I got a call from our first radio station. It was one of the local Des Moines stations. It was like going to be at like 5 a.m. They wanted to have me on there and kind of talk about the fundraiser and what was going on and all that fun stuff. So we went to, I sat in my car, so it was quiet, and I did the interview. And I don't know who was listening, but pretty soon, within about an hour after that, I had calls from all over the country that wanted me to have come on their radio shows. I had it from Anchorage, Alaska, Orlando, Florida, Chicago, San Diego, New York, all over the country. It was incredibly weird. And then pretty soon I started getting Facebook messages and Twitter messages and Instagram messages from people from outside the country. I had messages from people from the Philippines, from Brazil, from Australia. It got pretty popular in Australia, which I thought was, you know, insane. It was very interesting. Then I started getting on a couple TV interviews with local TV stations, things like that, talk about what was going on. It was really fun. Then I got a call, I think it was that Thursday, from Good Morning America. And they said, hey, how would you like to come out to Good Morning America and get an interview from Michael Strahan? And I thought, absolutely, this sounds incredible. So they said, okay, your flight leaves in 4 hours. I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to call him to work. So like any reasonable 24-year-old, I brought my parents with me because they'd never been to New York before. So I wanted to give them the experience of, you know, the Big Apple. So we all flew out to New York. We got there, and on our way, we stopped. Our layover was in Detroit. And in Detroit, we started getting phone calls from Fox and Friends, ABC, NBC, CNN, all these different news stations that wanted to bring me on their show and talk about the fundraiser. So I guess it was going to be a little bit more than just going on my first talk show. We got to talking with all these different organizations and different groups in New York, and it was really cool to kind of learn about what they do. Then we went to Good Morning America, and we had to get there super early. It was like 4 a.m., 5 a.m., and I was horrified. I didn't realize how many people were in the Good Morning America studios. There's like 200 people that get to be in that studio, and it's beyond me. I mean, I'd never spoken live in front of people before. You know, this was going to be my first television appearance, and it was on Good Morning America, which would have millions and millions of people watching live. And I was horrified. I was backstage shaking. I thought, you know, I'm going to drop an F-bomb or something. This is going to be bad. and Michael Strahan walks by and he sees me and he goes, Carson King. And I just giggled. I didn't know what else to do. I was like, Michael Strahan just said my name. That's insane. He just told me, it's going to be fine. It's just you and me talking. Don't even worry about the cameras. We're just going to talk about your fundraiser. And we did. We went out there and we just talked about the fundraiser, and everything was, really fun. And there was even at one point, Mr. Strahan pronounced the Stead Family Children's Hospital name wrong. He said Steed Hospital. And I knew I needed to correct him somehow, but I didn't want to just oh, it's actually Stead. I didn't know the etiquette or anything. So just the next time it was my turn to speak, I said, the Stead Family Children's Hospital is really, really powerful, all this stuff. And, that was pretty cool. And at the very end of it, they had a video recorded of some of the kids and families that were getting treatment at the hospital that they sent over. And I almost started crying on national television, which was not cool. But it was a really fun time. We got to go to all these different radio stations and TV stations in New York. It was an unreal experience. I mean, I never thought anything like this would ever happen. I thought the best case scenario that would come from this entire fundraiser would be, we get a couple $1,000s to help the hospital. And at this point, we were at over $300,000 total. Bush and Venmo both pledged to match whatever the total donation on my Venmo account was. So it was growing really quickly. People haven't had an incentive to, if they donate $5, it comes out to $15 is what they're actually donating. It's, that incentive plus the good cause and just the grassroots feel of it and how, natural and just organic everything was. People really resonated with it. So we got back to Iowa, and it was, really cool experience. I got to share it with, a bunch of different news stations and a bunch of my friends and family. And, it's just something that I'll always remember. And then a little while later, I think it was that Monday, I got a call or a message from a reporter with the Des Moines Register. And he said, hey, we found some tweets on your Twitter account from about 8 years ago. They're quoting Tosh.0, like they're kind of insensitive jokes. What do you think? And I was like, oh, well, I couldn't find them. I had no idea. I completely forgot about them. I was like, yeah, those are a bad attempt at humor. I said it was just kind of that edgy humor thing that was, really big in like 2012, 2011. It wasn't, I didn't realize that it was, all that offensive at the time. And it was offensive. So, I didn't really think much of it. Then a few hours later, I got a call from the Anheuser-Busch people, and they wanted to just talk with us about the fundraiser. And I was like, okay. And they said, we're aware of these tweets. They don't really align with our brand values. We don't want to support you anymore. We're still going to match our donations to the hospital, but that's it. We're done. And I was beside myself. I thought, you're kidding me. Tweets from when I was 16, 15 years old had just derailed an entire fundraiser to help kids with cancer. I couldn't believe it. I thought, these were one or two tweets that were just stupid jokes at the time. And this is going to impact kids that are fighting for their lives in a hospital. I was beside myself. I left work. I broke down. I decided the best course of action would be just to own up and, take the adult route and own up to, yeah, I was stupid when I was a kid. So I got a hold of some of the media people and had to meet me for a press release. And I talked about what was going on. I talked about where the fundraiser was at. I talked about all this, the attention it was getting. And I talked about the tweets. I said, when I was a sophomore, freshman in high school, I quoted Tosh.0 and the jokes were offensive, and I take full responsibility for them. I should have known better. You're always told to watch what you put on social media. And when you're younger, you just kind of blow it off. You don't really take in consideration the long-term effect of what social media has on your life. That sparked this whole new aspect to the fundraiser and to the story that was just very strange. Instead of, I was fully expecting to get, canceled and get, all these people would just stop donating. The fundraiser was over right there and all this stuff. Well, that didn't happen. People kind of realized, people grow and change and become adults. That's part of the process. Is they make stupid mistakes, they learn from them, and they move forward and become great people. And so they got behind it, and pretty soon we hit 2 million. And then by the very end of the fundraiser, we hit $3 million. It kind of opened up, the whole tweet thing kind of opened up a way to self-reflect on themselves about, their own social media usage and their own pasts and their own presence and their own future. And there was some strange twists that happened in there with the reporter himself that was really kind and showed me how to even find the tweets, because you can't scroll back 8 years on Twitter. You have to do advanced searches to find those. He showed me how to find them and, delete them and all this stuff. And unfortunately, people found tweets of his that were pretty unsavory. And he ended up losing his job over it. It was just, it just really makes you think about the power social media has, and how positive social media can be. And it's a great tool for businesses and, organizations and marketing, but it's also, a very fine line you walk between making everything you do very public and very private. The day of the donation rolls around October 11th. And we went to Iowa City and we got a tour of the hospital. It was really fun. At that point, we had over $3 million in total. So in 2.5 weeks, this grassroots fundraiser sparked with just the generosity of Iowans in general and people all over the country that see good causes and want to help. It all turned into a $3 million fundraiser to help kids that were fighting for their lives, whether that be in the NICU, whether that be in the cancer units, just different things going on. We got to actually sit down and talk with the hospital staff about where the donations wanted to go. So I told them I didn't want anything to be used on admin fees. Nothing for building maintenance, anything like that. I didn't want anything named after me. I wanted it to directly impact the kids and the families. So we talked about their neonatal transport unit, which is basically a NICU in an ambulance. They have a team that's on staff 24/7, and they go to all over the state and even the Midwest, and they get these kids that are born premature, and they give them immediately the highest level of care and transport them back to the University of Iowa hospitals to take care of them and make sure they survive. I wanted it to go towards continuing education for doctors and nurses, because when you walk around and you talk to the staff and you talk to the families and, the kids, like the kids obviously know something's wrong. They know something isn't right with them. And they're so positive. And the staff and what they do with these kids, it's really important, the connections they make. So I wanted to make sure those doctors and nurses and all the staff members had as much training as they could possibly have. I wanted to really make sure that they could support all the families going forward. There's this another cool program called the Child Life Specialists. What they do is they take the kids and they do baking or crafts or, just make them feel like normal kids again. And that also is incredible for the kids, because that just helps, them feeling normal again. But it also helps the families, because mom and dad can go, take a nap. They can go take a shower. They can go on a walk. They can just kind of decompress for a little bit, which the hospital does this incredible job of making sure that not only the kids are treated at the best possible care facilities they can be, but the families are taken care of as well. It's a really beautiful thing to see. So what I learned from this whole fundraiser was, the first one obviously is social media has an incredible impact. It's changed so much, even in the last 5-10 years. When I was, a freshman or sophomore in high school, there was just about 26 of us that had Twitter, and we would really just, talk to each other. It was just basically an open group chat is what we used it for. There were some comedians that would post on there, post their jokes, and TV shows would post clips, and we just share everything back and forth with each other. And now social media is, it's used for marketing, it's used for recruitment, it's used for brand awareness, it's used for all kinds of things. And, businesses and schools and everything, they go through your social media and they make sure you're a right fit. You're going to match up with their current employees. You're a good fit for their organizations. You're not out doing stupid stuff on your weekends. And it's permanent, and they can go back and basically your entire social media history, they can find it. And a lot of, kids don't really grasp that. This whole fundraising thing and this whole journey has kind of led me into a social speaking type thing, where I can go around to schools and high schools, middle schools, and businesses, and I can talk about, my experiences, what I've learned. I talk about the social media aspect with that. And, one thing I bring up is Snapchat, which, if you guys don't know Snapchat, it's like a picture messaging app that, it goes way after 10 seconds. And it can be a really dangerous thing for kids. So I talk about how, people with the right programs and equipment, they can find all those snaps and they can bring them back. They don't just disappear forever. And obviously the entire room just goes, they have no idea. So it's really dangerous just how unaware a lot of these kids are, how powerful social media can be. It taught me that small acts of kindness can really go an incredibly long way. Mine was just, thinking, oh, a couple $100s might be able to help a family. It doesn't have to be financial. It can spark to millions and millions of people supporting. I think our fundraiser had over 35,000 people donate, anywhere from 5 cents to like $1,900 through Venmo. There are businesses that jumped on board, and individual groups that were doing this, and all supporting the hospital. It could start as small as just smiling at someone when they come in the building. If you pick up and you are positive throughout your day, it spreads. It's really, kind of a butterfly effect. If you're happy, people around you generally tend to be happy. If you come in with a smile on your face, that helps everyone else too. You never know what kind of battles people are facing in their everyday lives. And if we can just be nice to each other and figure that out, that, if I'm nice to you, everything just comes out a little better, because that person's going to be a little bit nicer to the next person that they encounter. And, it's just a snowball. It taught me about community, and people really have a strong sense of, commitment and passion to their communities. This wouldn't have been possible without communities from all over the state, Midwest, the country, and the world coming together to support sick kids. I mean, that's an incredible cause, granted, but people just see something genuine and something good, and they want to help it. They want to move it along. They want to contribute. And a lot of times, sometimes the people that have the most giving hearts, they really don't have the financial means to do so when it comes to fundraising. They have a couple bucks that they're willing to throw at a good cause. They'll drop it in the kettle for the Salvation Army. They'll donate some food to the food pantries, but they really don't have the means to do it. So it kind of just really opened my eyes to the power of community, and just how good people can be, and how supportive and passionate people can be about a cause and helping people. It also led me to start thinking about ways that this can continue to move forward and progress as time goes on. So the day of the donation, I got asked, what's next for Carson? I had no idea. I was just going to plan on going back to work and living my everyday life, and this was a cool thing I can tell my grandkids about someday. And then I kind of got to thinking, I like doing this. I like the organizing part. I like the, going around and kind of speaking on, bringing awareness to the different causes that we support. And I decided I kind of wanted to see if I can't turn this into my own charity. So I started making just phone calls. My whole story kind of revolves around stumbling into random ways to make things work. And I stumbled into the right phone numbers and made the right connections to get a 501c3 charity started, get the paperwork filed, get all the tax stuff filed. And on Super Bowl Sunday of this year, tie in with the football aspect of this whole thing, we started the Carson King Foundation. And we wanted to support kids and families all over the state that were suffering and needed support. We wanted to bring awareness to different organizations and work with different organizations like the Ronald McDonald House, the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, MS Moments for multiple sclerosis, just kind of highlight what they do. Because the Ronald McDonald House, like people, they understand, oh, I send my pop taps to them. Well, yeah, that's part of it. But they literally give families who are having kids fighting for their lives in hospitals, they give them a place to stay for free. They give them free hot meals. They give them a shower. They don't have to worry about the stresses of home. They don't have to worry about the commute. They can be right down the road. In Des Moines, the Ronald McDonald House opened up at Mercy Hospital. And I think it's on the 4th floor. And the NICU's like on the 5th floor. They're right there by their kids. I mean, within minutes, they can be at their kid's bedside. And that stress just getting lifted off their shoulders is incredible. I'm not a parent. I hope to be one day, but I am a very proud uncle, and I have one nephew right now and one on the way. And I couldn't imagine the emotional, stresses and just how hard it would be to be strong the entire time when you're watching, your kid or your nephew or niece, fight for their lives. So just having those extra worries taken off your shoulder, it's, I'm sure it just helps a ton, because you're not only being strong, for yourself, but for your kid or your niece or your nephew. They look to you for the strength, and it's really touching. but we wanted to start, bringing awareness to what these places do and all the cool stuff. And there's tons of organizations out there in the state of Iowa that do incredible things. And there's a lot of really cool stories, like the Iowa Give Crew out in Cedar Rapids. They started because of a joke Craigslist post, giving away turkey on Thanksgiving. And it turned into this incredible thing. And they've been doing all kinds of work with the derecho and bringing people together and channeling funds and getting support where it's needed. There's all kinds of incredible groups out there that just need the exposure. So I thought, why not use what we gained to help and spread that? So we started the Carson King Foundation. We work with any organizations that need help. We just kind of sit down and we talk about it. I'll be working with the Iowa Able Foundation, which helps, for funds for disabled people in the state of Iowa to help build ramps, help, accommodate their houses, help with all these different things. I actually recently got on the board with the Puppy Jake Foundation, which raises and trains service animals for veterans returning home, fighting their own battles, with professionally trained service animals free of charge, which is really cool deal. We started to basically just be a see a need, fill a need foundation. I mean, this was the worst year to start a nonprofit, if I'm completely honest with you, because you can't do in-person events, you can't do anything. You have to get really creative and think of all these different ideas to be able to fundraise. So what we did was, our first fundraiser was right when the pandemic first started and lockdown first happened. We kind of realized that, there's a lot of people that don't have their physical outlets. They don't have any type of outlet for their own mental health. They can't go talk with their friends, just go on walks in the parks and everything. They have to kind of just, isolate. And it's, I'm sure that's incredibly hard on your mental health. So we worked with Iowa Love, which is based out of Waterloo. My friend William owns that company. We worked with them on a Carson King Foundation edition Iowa Love shirt. And those shirts were able to raise $40,000 in that first campaign, which was, I thought, incredible. I mean, I didn't think we'd get $40,000 on the year, and our first fundraiser beats that. That was so cool. So we divided that up into 4 different organizations across the state that were doing things to support their communities, and, we're adapting and changing and, finding ways to give help. So we sent to the Waubonsee Mental Health Resource Center in Clarinda, Iowa, which is actually where I was born. Then NAMI and Please Pass the Love, based out of Des Moines, and the Black Hawk Grundy Mental Health Center in Black Hawk Grundy County. They all do incredible work, and they're so passionate about what they do, and we just wanted to make sure that they were supported and knew that people were there for them. The next thing rolled around, we planned all these different fundraisers and different ways to do things that had to get canceled. And then the ratio happened, and we saw, millions of dollars in damage, and, entire lives and communities just uprooted and put on, twisted and mangled, and all the damage. And we wanted to find a way to help. For my full-time job now, this is, COVID affected me too. I took a job as a director of outreach and advancement for a children's charity based out of Waukee. And my main function there was fundraising and event planning. And you can't really do that when COVID started. So I took a layoff from that and started doing construction. And we were out in Cedar Rapids, just, getting bids to roofs and helping out with damage, and, taking trees off of roofs because people couldn't do it themselves. And we saw this sense of community and just how strong people can be, and everyone coming together to help each other. It didn't matter, if you had work or, people were finding ways to help each other. And it made you really proud. It was, it's this term kind of got coined of Iowa Strong. And, that's a very real thing. It's people see a need and they come together to help. It's a very community feel living in the state. We don't have the biggest cities in the world or in the country or in the Midwest by any means. And most of the time, like Des Moines is considered, oh yeah, that's a town compared to New York. And, all the small towns, they all come together to support each other. And they were all sending, physically sending. They were sending to food banks. There were all kinds of businesses like Willie Ray's Barbecue. He was giving free meals in Cedar Rapids to families that needed it. Just all kinds of these great people coming together to help. So we wanted to jump on that as well. We wanted to help out some way. So we sold Iowa Strong shirts through Iowa Love, which I think it ended up being over $60,000 in 72 hours to send. And we talked with United Way, who had dedicated storm relief funds, so nothing would be tagged for administration fees or anything like that. Which again, it's really important on for our end. So we sent to the I think it was Washington and Johnston County United Way, and they distributed to their communities. Then we sent to the Jasper County United Way because Newton got hit pretty hard, and the Community Foundation of Marshall County, because Marshalltown was still trying to recover from a tornado that came through 2 years ago and tore buildings down, took the top of their Capitol off. It was just, it was really devastating for them. So we wanted to support these guys. And then we're still continuing to raise funds. We found a whole bunch of different ways to, do fundraising. Like we're working on a Midwest Legend beer again. So last year during the hospital fundraiser, my friend Glenn Cole, that was at Geneseo Brewing in Illinois, he did an Iowa Legend beer and sent all the proceeds from that to the hospital. We want to do the same thing this year. So we brewed Midwest Legend, and it's available to any brewery anywhere. It's all open source. They can grab anything they want. There's all kinds of different label art that photographers around the state were sending into, and putting their own images on things, and to really make it a community effort. And $1 from every pint sold is going to storm relief. It's really cool to find these different ways, and there's so many cool things. Like the virtual 5Ks are getting really important now, and just seeing organizations and foundations and nonprofits and things, seeing them work together to come up with these new ways, these new virtual ways to support each other. It's really cool. So that kind of just wraps up my spiel. So if you guys have any questions or anything, just shoot it in the chat to Zach, and then we'll get some questions going.
Well, thank you, Carson. It's an incredible story, and to think of the timeline in which you've worked, it's amazing to think that we're just 1 year out. And I'm curious, as we wait for questions to come in, and I encourage folks to submit, had you been to the Stead Family Children's Hospital prior to deciding that they would be the recipient? Had you ever been? How has that relationship grown?
I'd never been there before. I'd always heard of it. And obviously the Iowa Way is a huge thing. I mean, if you guys aren't familiar with that, the Stead Family Children's Hospital overlooks Kinnick Stadium. And at the end of the first quarter, everyone in the entire stadium turns to the Children's Hospital and waves. And for, a few minutes, those kids, they're in the spotlight. It's all about them, and they're seeing all this support. I had never been to this children's hospital. I'd only been to Kinnick Stadium a couple times. And I think the first time I went, I'm not even sure if this children's hospital was built yet. But yeah, we got to go tour the hospital. Miss Ferentz took us on the tour, and we got to go, floor to floor and meet some of the families and, the children and the staff. And they're just, the relationships they build are so strong. I mean, there's kids that have been, they've recovered from whatever's been happening with them, and they're, on down the road, and they still check in with their nurses and their doctors, and they still send letters, and they come in and they have all kinds of these different organizations and groups that still help. Like they have kind of like an advisory board from the kids' perspective themselves. A young man named Christopher, he was on that, and he set up a bunch of different things and was helping out with that. And it's really cool to see just how passionate they are about this hospital. And I mean, it's for good reason. The entire design of it is for care and for comfort and, accessibility for everyone. It's really touching to see all this. And then, going down the road, like it's, the more and more you talk with the different families, you find out more and more people that have been treated at this hospital, and you don't even realize it. It makes such a big impact in our state and in the Midwest that it's cool.
Absolutely. So we've had a few questions come in. The most recent, can you repeat the brewery and the beer that's being used to raise funds for storm relief?
Yeah, so it started with Glenn, who was at Geneseo Brewing Company. He moved to Midwest Ale Works, and they launched an open source fundraiser. That's in Illinois, but there are ones like Twin Span in Bettendorf is doing it. There's a bunch of different breweries that, can do it. Anyone's open to do it. All they have to do is go to midwestaleworks.com/fundraiser, and the entire breakdown's there. The recipes there, the marketing tools are there. And as long as they send $1 from every pint sold to my foundation, they're more than welcome to put their own spin on it. I think Geneseo is doing like a pumpkin spice beer to put a spin on it. There's Twin Span. They're doing Everything's Grown in Iowa. All of their products that are being put into this beer are grown locally in Iowa. So it's really, it's a cool tie. But that one is Midwest Ale Works. Their website, midwestaleworks.com/fundraiser, has all the information on it.
So you've talked about kind of stumbling into things, being an accidental fundraiser. Obviously, running a foundation is different than that. How are you learning how to do that? Who are your mentors? Have you connected with folks along the way? Kind of how are you learning kind of this not accidental, but to keep that momentum going?
I've been really fortunate where I can go around and I can, meet with people that, work for, our directors and, CEOs of these different organizations and foundations and nonprofits. And basically, anytime I talk to them, I kind of, base what we're doing and look at the strong points of them and be like, we can do that. I wanted to keep it very small. We don't have any, staff members or anything. It's 4 board members, and it's all volunteer. No one gets a payroll. We wanted to impact directly. So we're small enough where we can kind of fumble around a little bit, and we just make sure that all the financials are taken care of, the marketing is taken care of, and we find good causes and just kind of, take baby steps, because we would like to grow to an organization that, within, 5-10 years that can, be a supporter of multiple organizations just on the drop of a hat. We don't have to do, see a need, fill a need fundraisers. We can build up a savings and, give support to families and kids, and we can, provide a service ourselves instead of just supporting those that do. You can learn a lot from a lot of different people. And just by talking and just making phone calls, and I've done a lot of Zoom meetings with different directors about how they function and, the do's and don'ts when you're starting. And it's, there's a lot of really cool tools out there that, can help. And as long as you take the right steps and build the right foundations for a foundation, it's actually not that difficult.
Now, have you put together requirements to work with different nonprofits, and have you had to say no to organizations that have reached out yet?
Yeah. So obviously, like I said, I'm not big into administration fees. We are completely volunteer, and I understand that, there are a lot of huge organizations that do a lot of good that do have decent sized administration fees. I understand it. I just don't like it myself. So there's organizations that most likely I would not work with unless they have dedicated, earmarked funds that wouldn't be used for, paying their CEOs and paying their staff members and all this stuff. It would just be directly used to provide services. It hasn't really come up all that often yet. There are a couple that I'm kind of leery about. I'd like to learn a lot more about before I would just, give support to them right away. Just like, anytime you donate to any charity or any, nonprofit organization, you want to do your research on it just to be safe, but yeah, there's a couple that I'm kind of, I'd shy away from a little bit until I learned more and, would have, a dedicated earmarked fund section for them,
Cool. Well, Carson, I appreciate you taking time this morning and for the work that you've done representing Iowa and for the Stead Family Children's Hospital and all the work that you continue to do. So thank you for taking time.